Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the Personnel Committee. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and welcome to everyone that is watching online or catching it later. We start the agenda with apologies. I think we have apologies from Councillor Ray Tully this evening. Otherwise, we have a full complement. Moving on to item 2, declarations of interest. Does anybody here have any interest in any of the items coming up on the agenda they need to declare now? No? Lovely, thank you very much. On to item 3, the minutes from the previous meeting from the 4th of June. These have been circulated previously. Does anyone have any comments, amendments or queries to make on those minutes? In that case, can I have a proposal that we accept them? Councillor Smith-Roberts, a seconder. Councillor Pollard, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you very much. I will sign those now. Moving on to item 4, we need to note the forward plan for the Personnel Committee. Would anyone from the officers like to quickly run through what we are looking at here?
So for the next committee on the 1st of October, in line with our policy review schedule, we've got redundancy policy and recruitment and retention. And we wanted to do an overhaul of our employee handbook for new starters. We've also got some new schemes on the board plan, which includes a cycle to work scheme, a long service award policy, which has been put forward by Donna, and health surveillance as well. So that's baseline health checks for workers, particularly in our ops and assets areas.
Okay, and looking ahead, the next one will be in December, and that is the budget to look at in advance of sending that to full council. Do we have any queries on that at this stage? No. Do I have to propose it to note Councillor Furman, seconder, Councillor Pollard? All those in favour of noting that forward plan? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Next on the agenda, item 5 is driving to work. And we have, is this Nick? Is it Bryony? Bryony presenting. Thank you very much, Bryony.
So I'm going to take the credit for someone else's work. So I didn't write the policy. The policy author is here tonight, but I may defer for any questions. But yes, so this is our driving at work policy. So it's a new policy, and it is for purposes of driving at work as opposed to commuting in and out. It does include some appendixes at the end, which is for the accident procedure and also the incident report form, and the rest of the policy continues around all elements of good practice. Happy to take any questions that I may pass on.
I just wanted to check, and this came up at the pre-meeting. I just wanted to follow up because I queried whether we needed to have something in there around staff members ensuring they have appropriate insurance cover for driving for business use if they are driving during the day.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I did have a chance to pick up that question. So there is a section in there around the insurance qualifications on page 8, which I've just forwarded through, which I think the question was in relation to people using their own vehicles, wasn't it? So
yes,
using a personal vehicle, but for a work-related task. So maybe moving from one location to the other. So yes, it is outlined in that area that the correct insurance would need to be in place for that, or use of fleet vehicle.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions on this policy? Just giving you a moment just to percolate, just in case something pops up. As it looked through it previously, and it did look, it's really robust, apart from that one bit that I flagged from my experience. Councillor Smith-Roberts.
My only query was, I think on page 7, that it says that if there's change in driver circumstances, it's to report to the town council, but it doesn't say who within the town council and whether we just need to be a bit more specific, because it could be, if if you've lost your license as an example, it's probably a discreet conversation needed, and that can then also affect your employment, couldn't it?
Yeah, we can take that away as a change. And
1, 2, 3 from the bottom. Page 7. 1.
Page number is not really obvious. Okay, thank you.
yeah, well spotted. I think later on in the policy it does go on to name names in terms of positions, but yeah, we can get a named person. That one.
Are you suggesting that goes through a line management process in the first instance? Spotted. Do you have any more comments on that policy? Lovely. Oh, thanks to John. Is that John?
Yes.
The one face I don't know in the room. I thought that must be John. So thank you very much for your work on it. Thanks for putting it together.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks for coming here this evening. Sorry, we don't have more questions for you.
I'm happy.
It's a good thing, we really appreciate it.
Do I have someone to propose that we accept the policy with the amendment that has been put forward? Councillor Pollard, a seconder. Councillor Smith-Roberts, all in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And then we move on to item 6, the desk and car parking spaces policy. I think we're dotting around the panel today. It's not all Nikki. So this is Marcus to introduce this item.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So yeah, bringing forward the desk and car parking spaces policy, which can't really, obviously now we've got the depot site. It's been recognised that to have a policy to formalise those ways of working that we have been, in a sense, operating with at the Deane House for the last couple of years. We have had some work done in terms of looking at different ways of working with the Outlook calendar booking system. So our business optimisation leaders come up with a really useful solution that doesn't cost us any money, and it seems to be working very effectively in terms of booking using the Outlook calendar system. So that's been introduced to meeting rooms, desks and parking bays. Policy sets out clear procedures for booking and also about the standardised clear desk policy, so that when employees rock up to a desk that they book, they can just slot in. It's nice and clean and tidy for them, ready to use. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I'm just checking to see again if the amendment that I put forward in the pre-meeting has been changed. This was around just some slight wording on what to do with confidential documents. There was some wording in there before that indicated that staff could take them home, but we opted to change that they should be put in a locked unit on site. Amended. Thank you. Councillor Thurman.
When it comes to perhaps a conflict where two employees want to use the same desk at the same time, is there a procedure to resolve that quite smoothly and efficiently?
I don't think there's a number of desks. I mean, you just book on and then you can come and find a free desk. So I don't think we would encourage employees to have a favourite desk and kick someone out if they were in that. Obviously, if there was a situation whereby all the desks were booked, then we wouldn't say that you could then use those spaces, and then you'd have to, and that's how it allows with the calendar system. You put it in your calendar, and if it's already fully booked, you'll get like a rejection email saying that there aren't enough spaces for you that day.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Smith-Roberts.
Can you remind me whether we have lockers for people? Because when we brought in where I work a bit more of, it's not quite hot desking like we see here, but they have put in lockers to try and help with that kind of cleared desk arrangement, so that people actually had stuff to store everything rather than carting it to and from work. They're only about so big. And so that's my first question. And then my second question is on the car parking spaces. And I guess it boils back down to the issue around parking, particularly at our depot, and what more we can do to communicate kind of responsible parking in the neighbourhood. So hopefully by booking car parking spaces, they'll get booked up quickly. And then people will maybe go out and park on the streets, and there's nothing to restrict that if there is no restrictions set there by Somerset Council. But I'm just wondering, have we done any further work on that around our impact on the neighbourhood?
Marcus.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'll pick on the parking one first, if that's all right. In terms of, so yeah, we recognise that the depot parking is a lot more limited than here at the Deane House, where there's 18 spaces. We have had employees parking in the nearby roads. The utilities work as well as impacted on their ability to use the park and ride potentially, and then come across in one vehicle to the site. We have in the last week been able to support a permit solution around the Cornish Way estate, which hopefully will have had reduced impact on the neighbouring roads. So I do know that there have been some complaints from residents. Obviously, our employees are quite well. If they let landlords and things, and then the uniform, you know, the neighbours would know who it is. And like you say, on public roads they can park outside, but we know that does sometimes cause issues. So I believe an update has gone out from our operations and assets manager. I can forward that on to the committee, the latest on this. So hopefully with the permits in place, which we put in place for supervisor level and below, should alleviate the issue. And then the lockers, we don't have any lockers here at Deane House. We have storage areas for the team, but perhaps that's something we can look at with the funding that was recently approved by council. We do at the depot site, because obviously they come in, there's showers there, they can swap out their dirty clothes. But I think Brian,
I was just gonna, so we did put out a survey when we first moved into this space to see if people would like to have lockers. And at that time, I think there was only 2 people that said that they wanted them, and there is provision downstairs in the building facilities around where the showers are. So the decision was made at that point to not continue with it, but we could revisit that because we have had quite a few changes in.
Is it worth putting it on the agenda for, you know, 6 months' time, possibly once things have settled in? If that's something we might need to put, well, in time for the budget, I would say. Have a look at it up, how many months that is before looking at the budget. Councillor Deacon.
Yeah, can I just ask on the permits, which I think is great that we've done that, by the way. Are they just by default offered to members of staff who I guess are based at the depot? So that's their kind of designated place of work, supervisor and below. You just get one as their kind of standard. You don't apply for them, or they're not. It's just part of your role, is that you, and then you now receive a permit to be able to park on the trading estate. Is that correct?
Yep, thank you, Councillor. So yeah, every of the 13 that we've issued, their role is that they're required to operate from the depot premises. Whether it be a long-term arrangement, we're sort of actually as an interim arrangement for the moment, because we are in discussions with our managing agent, Aldred King, about the potential for utilising more parking on the estate in the longer term. So obviously the parking permits cost us money. It's not a huge amount. It's £75 per year per permit. But that's okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more queries on this policy? Very much. Do I have someone to propose that we accept it? Councillor Furman, is there a seconder? Councillor Deacon, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you very much. Moving swiftly on to item 7, the Employee Wellbeing Survey Update Report. And this one is Bryony again.
Thank you. So this one is it's just a verbal update, but it was following, we had the first survey around Christmas time, and I think when we looked at the initial results, there was a request that we come back when we had the second tranche to see how it was looking, because I think there was a bit of nerves because the first result were overwhelmingly positive and there could have been only one direction of travel. But so we've now completed the second exercise. I've put the complete report in the same format as it's gone out internally to employees as well, so that you're seeing the same messaging that employees are seeing around it. And in the covering report, I've in the background area just identified some of the steer that it's given us. So some of the actions that we've taken from it was that we had a decline in people being confident that they knew how to access support for mental health. So as a result, Nikki and Zara have done 2 drop-in sessions around our Viv Up support platform. And we've also made some changes to our one-to-one template to take into account again some of the feedback that we were hearing from people around wanting to hear back from their managers about their performance. So we're taking that into account. So there's a new one-to-one template which is being trialled at the moment by my team. And we've also introduced a SLT/town clerk briefing, because it was acknowledged there was a bit of a only very slight downturn in people's feeling about communication generally. Although they reported that their communication with their direct manager had improved, they were saying that on the whole it had not improved. So we were looking to pick up how that could be addressed. One thing that was a slight disappointment from the survey was that we had less survey responses this time, which was a bit unexpected because we've got more staff this time. So we've spoken to our colleagues in internal communications and looked at some things we might want to roll out for the next session just to try and ensure a bit more engagement with it. So we're going to be looking at doing some QR codes to give access to the survey, and also some printed copies, because some of our colleagues, perhaps over at depot sites that aren't computer based, might find that easier to access. So it was a bit of a shame that we didn't have the level of engagement that we would have liked to have seen, but we've got some strong ideas about how we can boost that for next time. But on the whole, it's given us some really clear, tangible direction for what we can be doing to improve things, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I just had one thing I thought was interesting from a nerdy stats point. In question 12 about how do you rate your stress levels generally in life? And oh no, there's quite a high number of people that often feel stressed. None of them say never, which, you know, that would be amazing. But interesting, in question 13, actually there's significantly less people reporting they feel stressed at work, which kind of would lead me to understand that they're actually it's life stress rather than work stress in quite a lot of those cases, which is unfortunate that people are feeling stressed at home, but really good to see that actually then it's not being attributed to workplace stress.
That was actually Nikki's idea when we first launched the survey, was to get a baseline for people's general stress in life before asking that question. And actually, yeah, all credit to you, because that's give us good insights.
Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Few questions. Are we talking about mental health first aiders in this bit or next? Right.
There is a separate.
Fine. Okay, I saw that. Sorry, I skipped down as well. I just had a question on what we can do in relation to supporting people to progress in their development, because that again had just a slightly lower score, where kind of either maybe or maybe or no, did they feel that they didn't have opportunities for career advancement alongside that? So I'm just wondering, is that brought up in like one-to-ones with the team? Because I thought that we were doing lots of different training. I know that you finished your ILM, is it? Yeah, so that's really positive and very well done. So it's just wondering whether everyone realises that they have access to that, or yeah.
I'm happy to talk about that one. So we have got there's another item on the agenda for tonight, which is to go over our training policy. Sorry. So yeah, so the training policy after today will get shared with staff as long as it's approved, and we can start to recognise some of those aspirations that people have got for that sort of development. I think it has been a bit quieter, possibly because recruitment has slowed down, but also because of the amount of time that it's taken to do the training policy and get it to the point where it's ready to be adopted. We have needed to pause on some opportunities, although having said that, we have just recently enrolled 18 of our next level of management down, so our leads are now going to be doing the ILM level 3, which is a really exciting development, and they've it's been on the whole really well received. That's going to be the case. So hopefully people are starting to see that there is criticism and movement. But yeah, I'm happy to pick that one up in the training review as well.
And then I guess a wider point of mine just to come in is we've obviously got the narrative to say, you know, how we're responding to it. Are we going to do that in a team meeting or in a like one-to-one? How are we, because there are a lot of words on this document, how do we make it simplified to say you said we did?
At the moment, it's gone out as a it's gone on our internal news post as is, but we are, so the piece of work that we're doing around changing the format of the one-to-one template, we can certainly look to bring in some of these questions around development that are coming up regularly. Maybe we can look to build that into that template just to keep that conversation going. Q&As as well. Yeah, and the staff Q&As as well.
So Deacon,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay.
Thank you. I'm used to looking at the chair there. Afflicted, I think it's a super positive, actually. I think there's bits to work on, as there always should be, but I think reading through it, particularly given the kind of the growth of the team in quite a short period of time, to really see such positive results around team unity and feeling part of something, I think is an amazing. I think that's an accolade to, I know those of you in particular who've worked really hard on those aspects, so the team days, outsourcing those to different teams to lead them, bringing people together. I think that's really showing its benefits. And I thought in the kind of that summary wrap up at the end, so I would tend to agree with the kind of summary just from the outside looking in as well. I think what's really amazing about the team that we're building is that it's got a real blend of public sector experience and private sector actually, and other experiences, and I think that's amazing that we're building that. I think that the constructive suggestion around further training on council processes, financial regulations, the rules we have to follow, that feels like a right next step to help the team further understand the hoops that sometimes we have to go through, which I think we'd all agree don't always feel like they make sense, but we have to actually, whether we like to or not. So I'd agree with that as kind of just a general, just the outside looking in, that feels like a sensible next step. But no, I think this is a really positive to see. Yeah, it'd be nice to get a few more people responding. But well done.
I just want to reiterate my congratulations to you and the wider team on the amazing work that you've done to build this team. I think question 23 is really telling. Would you recommend working at Taunton Town Council for friends and family if they asked? 20 out of the 23 said yes, and three maybe. Absolutely no one said no. And in my experience, when you do staff surveys, you tend to get people at the extremes. You get the people that absolutely love it, and you generally get the people that have something they're really unhappy about, and it would show up in a question like that. And there's nobody there that said they would not recommend working here to someone they knew. And I think that's really high praise.
So just on that, I thought I don't know how appropriate or possible this is. I'm always conscious that the public see the council as this kind of faceless thing. It's the council, and actually we have a lot of amazing people with interesting stories who work here and are highly professional, highly skilled. I just wonder if in some of our communications we can tell some of those stories about some of those people who behind the scenes are working hard. So it's very easy, we see it all the time, to go onto Facebook and have a moan about the council staff, but they are real people who are working really hard and really good at their job. And I think in our communications, we talk about our services a lot. I think if we could talk about some of the people who are delivering them, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can add to that. I wonder if you can also use it as a recruitment element.
Yeah,
so as we did that really good piece around the work experience as well,
really
and how that could lead on to things. I'm wondering if there's something there around recruitment, about what that team is, bringing that job to life. Because when you see, I don't know, I think we've got a rollout for procurement at one point we had, and so you kind of go, well, what does that mean? Some people will know what that means, but actually a lot of people that interact with the page aren't necessarily looking at applying for that job, but they may want to understand, well, why do we need it as well? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Any more thoughts, comments, questions on the presentation? I think that's just to note. So I think we still need to have someone to propose that we officially note Survey, Councillor Smith-Roberts, seconder, Councillor Furman, I think picked you the best. All in favour? The Deacon. Thank you very much. Oh, that was a resounding yes. And yeah, thanks again for putting that together. It's really, really good to see such a positive response. We do move on to number 8, mental health first aiders. This is Nikki to present.
Thank you. Actually, I touched on this a little bit in the last item. So mental health first aiders, we've spoken about it in a few committees actually. So this is a new initiative that we're looking to bring in. And it's in addition to our existing employee EAP scheme, so in our employee assistance programme. So what we would like to do is to train some of our employees to become mental health first aiders, and they'll be able to provide then some initial sort of low-level support to our employees. It's predominantly like a signposting role. Lots and lots of organisations have made use of mental health first aiders. I think a key thing for me is the it's the message as well that it sends, that if we have mental health first aiders that are available to our employees and we invest in those, the message it sends to our employees is that their mental health is very important to us. We have looked, myself and John looked at some different training providers, including St John's Ambulance and Mental Health First Aid England, and one which is hopefully be able to provide more locally, which is MedRock, and Taunton Minster got in touch with us to say that they were going to be putting on a mental health first aider one-day course, and that's probably the one that we'd like to recommend and go with. It's a one-day course, it's significantly cheaper, and it's face-to-face. I think it would be really good as well to be on course with other local organisations. And as you can see, Jason Stevenson from the Minster sort of highly recommended them. So I'm happy to take any questions.
I just wanted to check. I'm assuming that the 5 people that put themselves forward for this, they would be doing it on council time. They'd be paid for their time whilst they're doing the training. I'm sure they do. I just wanted to double check. My previous employer used mental health first aiders, and I always heard loads of good things about it. And I didn't have to use it myself, but I know that the people that did it really enjoyed it, and 2 of them now run a men's mental health club as well, and they really love it, and they say it's one of the best things they've done. So it's good for all the staff, but then the people doing it as well. It seemed at least there that they got a lot of fulfillment from it. So I think it's great.
Is that a confirmation that yes, it will be done in work time? That's why I'm not nodding going on there. Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Really support this. I actually helped, I was involved in this in my workplace at rolling it out, gosh, it must be about 5 years ago now, and seeing the benefits that it has to staff members. I'm just wondering whether we need to actually think about the support we give councillors. So this is talking about employees, but also about them being available to so that mental health first aiders are available for councillors to go and speak to about that kind of care towards them, because of the role that they play and sometimes the flack that they get. Sometimes probably they'd like to talk to people. So it's just something to consider around that kind of duty of care. And then the only other thing is whether we then, once we've got this up and running, and again, I've seen it flourish to like other, how it kind of helps an organisation grow, is to think about the orange button scheme as well alongside that. And whether the same people want to go on and do the orange button scheme, or we want other individuals to look at that.
I just wanted to check the 5 employees. Obviously, it's going to be voluntary. Whoever steps up to do this, it is entirely voluntary. But are we going to try and encourage people from a really wide range of the council, because it'd be really good to know that someone at the depot, for example, was taking part in this, rather than all being based in Deane House, that we've got people at different levels and different kind of departments of the organisation, just to ensure the kind of widest spread. But obviously that's down to the new steps forward.
That would be our aim, to get a spread sort of across the organisation, different roles and different locations. We already have a couple of mental health first aiders that are trained in previous organisations that are over at the depot. So I'm hoping they will come forward for us as well. And I think they're already being a little bit utilised now. So that's what we're looking for. We're hoping that we get a real wide range, and then if we do get more than sort of 5 volunteers, then we would be looking to try and spread it out.
That was my follow-up question. Are we limiting it to 5, or is that an initial goal? And if you got 7 or 8 people, then we would look at actually increasing the spend and actually having slightly more people.
Yeah.
I don't think we've picked it up that far. The question, to be fair to Nikki, she did ask that question, and I think I said, let's see how many people are interested and then have a conversation around it. I think ideally, if people are interested in training and we can facilitate that financially, then we would always look to encourage it. But of course, I'll say that now, if it's 40 people that don't hand forward for it, I think we'll have to use some discretion when we know how many people are interested. But it strikes me that, yeah, we would encourage as many people as financially we could support with it.
I'm just thinking if we did go with the Taunton Minster Medrock option, it is considerably cheaper. So if there was a notional budget assigned to this, you could train considerably more people through that scheme if more people came forward to do it. I know I personally would be really keen to put my name forward if councillors were allowed to do that. It's a conversation for another time. Unless you were looking for a mental health first aider amongst the councillor cohort.
That was on my mind when I asked that question.
Which obviously shows I'm, generally in favour of the project, if I haven't already said that. Do you have any more questions about this? I don't know if anyone else has any strong feelings about the 3 different options. My gut feeling is that a face-to-face one is more powerful than doing something online. Generally speaking, it's much more, you retain the information better and you get around to it if you're in a room with other people. I think if that is a possibility.
Yeah, no, it's just what budgetary approval do you need us to give you today, or is there just enough discretion? I'm just thinking it's parameters can we set?
I think we can authorise it this evening because it's below the threshold for having to refer it to anyone else.
Okay, so we should give probably a little. So I quite like the idea, by the way, of seeing if there's a couple of councillors who might want to do it. So I don't know if that's possible, but I think that's a good suggestion. So if we could up it to say.
Shall I quickly run through the figures?
Yeah, maybe let's do that.
The first option, which was the 2-day course with St John's Ambulance, is including that £403.20 a person. So 5 employees is £2,016 for that particular option. Try and scroll down to the next one. The Taunton Minster option is £90 per person for a 1-day in-person course. So that would be £450 for 5 employees. The difference is quite. Was there a third option? Have I just skimmed past it?
Yeah, there's one in the middle as well.
Apologies, I need my glasses. So that's okay. That would be a 2-day course over 4 sessions online at £325 per person. So 5 people would be £1,626. So the difference is quite marked between those 2 options. Bryony.
I was just going to say there is provision within that. I've just checked the budget for councillor training, and there would be provision to displace that. If that was something that you wanted to do.
So I think the feeling I get, at least from Councillor Deacon, and no one else has put forward a preference for anything else, is that we potentially look at the Taunton Minster option. Would anyone else like to suggest that we don't at this stage? So we're looking at the third option, the Medrock Taunton Minster, a 1-day course for £90 a person. You're looking at the moment at notionally at 5 people, depending on who steps forward. It could be less, it could be more. Do we want to set an upper limit? Should there be an upper limit? I'd be really impressed if there were more people that wanted to do it. That would be absolutely amazing. That's the Vernon.
I think if we put a limit of 20, because if you have, you're not going to have more than that being mental health, first aiders as such. So I think that's a reasonably good number.
Include councillors as well.
Include councillors, and so in which case, if there were councillors, that would come from a slightly different budget line. Obviously, if you were looking at some of the more expensive options, that would have been covered. If we were looking at spending £2,000, the budget is available. So if that was essentially the overall budget, the potential budget. Nikki?
My understanding is that Medrock, I think the maximum is 12 sessions, so we may have to do it in, we have to say to the Minster, because otherwise we're going to take all their spaces. So it might be that we would get them in-house. It's the same cost, it's for 12 people.
Should we, in that case, limit it at this stage to 12? Which actually seems like quite an ambitious.
Yeah, I think sorry.
No,
So yeah, I think if we were targeting 12 with around 2 councillors, that's 10 members of staff as a kind of upper band. I'm just slightly cautious that if it is 20 and if we had 20 mental health that just feels like that's almost too many in the organisation. I feel like you want it to feel like a specialist role that certain people have. I think if lots of people have it, then it kind of loses its value in some ways. So I think you do want to limit it to some extent. So 12 feels sensible.
If 12 is the cap for their session size, then that's quite a sensible cap then. Thank you for that. I'm assuming that we would look at doing refreshers in the future. So that might either mean refreshers for the same people or reintroduction for if anyone leaves the team or decides they don't want to do it anymore. Maybe that's a sensible cohort size. Which would be amazing because that would be essentially 1 in 6 of our staff.
Yeah.
But it may be considerably less. We'll see what happens. In that case, bear in mind the conversation we've had. So that would be the proposal. Well, shall I propose it then? Seeing as I'm saying it out loud. I propose that we move forward with the mental health first aid 1-day course at Taunton Minster, delivered by Medrock. With the option of potentially bringing it in-house if we do end up having sufficient people to do an entire class with them, to a maximum of 10 members of staff and 2 councillors at the cost of £90 per person. That is my proposal. Seconder, Councillor Smith-Roberts. All those in favour? Unanimous. Now we move on to item 9, the performance improvement policy. This is back to Nikki.
Back to me, thank you. So performance improvement policy, this is a reviewed policy. So previously it was within the employee handbook under capability. So we've amended the title to performance improvement. And there's, to be honest, it's a review. So the notable additions are the sections on extreme underperformance and support for employees who are going through the process. The rest of the policy is basically being reviewed in line with legislation and best practice. The only other change is that, as with all our policies, we are evolving the decision making slightly, so not always asking for the town clerk, chief executive to be making decisions, but putting those decisions at a lower level, sort of service manager level. Take any questions?
Do you have any questions on this? And I had cited this at the pre-meeting, so apologies that my questions I think have already been answered on this one. Thanks for your work on this. And again, I really hope it's one of those policies that gathers dust and we don't actually need to use it. That is always the goal. No, I think anything that I've brought up previously has been tweaked. Anything from anyone else? In that case, do I have someone to propose that we adopt this policy as it is? Councillor Pollard? A seconder? Councillor Furman, all those in favour? Thank you very much. I'm sorry we didn't manage to come up with anything really difficult for you, but you've done a great job putting it together as ever. Item 10 then, the training policy update. See that back to Brian again.
Yeah, apologies, there are 4 documents. I'll explain a little bit why. So it's not a new policy, but it is an update to an existing one. So back in around February time, I brought through the organisational development strategy. And at the time that we were looking at that, it was part of the plan that this would start to come into focus when we looked at the training policy. So hence I've uploaded that document again, just because there have been changes in members. So that is one of the documents that's been added, but you would have already seen it. So this is now the detail following on from that organisational development, and the actual training policy itself. One of the big changes is around the skills matrix and the introduction of using that in terms of identifying training needs. So we've just completed a very extensive and tailored training matrixing for the whole organisation, and it has been budgeted and double checked and signed off by managers. It's taken a very long time to do it, but we're in a confident place now where we're ready to proceed with it. The policy also now contains the process for people that are wanting to apply for training, which might not necessarily have been something identified for them, but that they've had of their own initiative that they would have an interest in, or that they think it would bring them benefit to have that training. So we now have in place that process as well, and that's the final appendix document that was uploaded. Is just a copy of that request form for members to view and consider. It's quite a long request form, and the purpose of it is for the person who's requesting the support for that training. It's just to have considered all elements of what that might mean for the business, what it might mean for them. It is quite similar to one I think that SWT previously used, which worked quite well for that organisation. I think that was the majority of the changes that have been made, but I am happy to take any questions about any of those documents. Sorry, there's so many.
Can I just get you to just clarify? So this policy covers training that's come from that's council led, that is identified by line management, say actually this is a training need, but also self-identified training where employees can come to you saying, I found something that I think would be a great benefit to you, filling in that the application form that you've done to justify why they think it would be beneficial to their personal development of the organisation. And there is a section on repayment of course costs, which I'm cunningly just skimmed past accidentally. So there's a sliding scale for repaying that should people drop out of course, and I can't remember, and I can't find it. Just what is there a requirement that they, if it's a longer course, that they either need to remain in post or repay costs if they leave the post within a certain amount of time after finishing?
There is.
Apologies, but I can't. I'm sure it's in there, but I can't.
Yeah, it's at the bottom of the form as well.
Okay.
7,
Oh,
around 6.
thank you, Sarah. It's on page 6. I'm reliably informed. Just get onto it. Yes, so there is a scale about midway down the page there, and there was some questions asked around is there any difference between if it's training that we've required of employees to do versus training that they've particularly requested of us to do. So there is a little bit of detail that we need to establish for what the process will be when it's the employee who's requested specifically that funding.
Yeah.
But the policy itself and the repayment of course costs that's mentioned on that page would in this instance specifically be for when the organisation has requested it or suggested it for that person, that would be the repayment, because we would seek to have their agreement before putting them, and also their commitment before putting them through any courses.
And obviously we want to skill our staff up as much as possible. That's really to support them. But at the same time, it needs to be good use of taxpayers' money if that employee then promptly leaves to go elsewhere. Feels mean, but it's good to know that it is in there. Thank you. I thought I'd seen it, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen it. Thank you. Do we have any other questions on? And this again is completely separate to any kind of counsellor training. This is purely just for staff.
Sorry, there's just one thing which might be covered in another document that we have, but it needs formal approval by the town clerk. I think it says in here under the booking of training, where a funding request is made for the training budget, training should only be booked after it's been formally approved by the town clerk. Is it I don't know, is it the manager or the clerk or
Is that
someone
supposed to be
else,
there anymore?
okay.
Well,
fine.
where is that?
So that's just above the section actually around the sliding scale. So it's at the top of that page, paragraph 3 under booking training.
Thank you. So no, so there is a new process. It still would, so the new process is that there are anything over £100 would go to their immediate line manager to get their agreement to it, and at that stage, if they had their the support of their immediate line manager, it would come to SLT as a group, so that we can make sure that we're considering, and it's not one area that's getting all the opportunities and other people are not, so there will be assessed and agreed as part of that group. So I do need to change that, so that will change from from town clerk to SLT instead.
Right.
Thank you, well spotted.
Any more comments, questions on that one? Good. Do I have someone that's happy to propose that we adopt that policy? Thank you, Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Deakin. All those in favour of approving? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And we move on to item 11. That is the wellbeing and sickness absence policy. That's back to Nikki again.
Thank you. So wellbeing and sickness absence policy is a reviewed policy in line with our policy review schedule. I have listed the changes in the report, but some quite key ones are that we have introduced the Bradford score solely for KPIs and as an additional criteria just to trigger an absence review meeting. We have also reduced the criteria to trigger an absence review meeting. So currently, one of our trigger points is 3 instances of sickness in 3 months, which is quite a lot of sickness absence. And this new policy has changed that to 3 periods in a 12-month rolling 12-month period. I did pull a report, actually a sickness report, just to see what difference that would make in terms of sickness absence review meetings. And actually, it would only have meant in the last 12 months 3 extra meetings for managers. It's just about us trying to pick up on any issues in terms of well-being and health as quickly as possible. So that's quite a key change. We've also added in a section about taking time off for medical appointments, because that wasn't really quantified before. Sickness absence during pregnancy and where employees can access support. So happy to take any questions.
The report twice rather than the actual document. I think because I've raised previously about the sickness absent, the doctor's appointment, medical appointments. What was the final wording on that one? I can't get policy up in front of me. With wording around how much time is going to be allowed for that, given where people may work, may live, and where their doctors may be, how much time is reasonable to take off for kind of travel, or
So
if they have an unfortunately timed appointment.
yeah, so we did we change it to? I amended the wording in terms of medical appointment makes an employee unwell or lasts over half a day. The absence should be recorded as sickness.
How is it recorded if it's less than half a day?
In terms of medical appointments, we said that the council appreciates not always possible to avoid appointments during the working day. So we'd be wanting employees to make up any missed work time wherever possible for things like GP, dentist, optician. Obviously, a lot of that does depend on the employee, and I think manager would have some discretion. So in terms of if you had an employee that had set working times, maybe someone in ops and assets, it may be slightly different to somebody who is an office worker or somebody that can work from home and can flex their day. We also said about being entitled to reasonable time off for hospital appointments, but efforts should be made to minimise service disruption. Obviously, things like hospital is difficult to amend. So in terms of anything over half a day, or if it makes you sick, though, that would be recorded as sickness. The only other addition is employees with a disability will have the paid disability leave as well. So any appointments sort of relating to that disability would just be paid time off.
I'm mostly thinking about something that's happened to me previously, living out in the villages and having a doctor in the villages, but then needing to come if I'm at a workplace in town, the kind of the unfeasibility of having a 10:30 doctor's appointment and the unrealistic expectation to go to work and then travel back and then go to work again. That effectively means you have a half day for a doctor's appointment. Yeah, that's the only appointment they can give you. So how that's managed, where if it was somebody living in town who could nip to a town centre's doctor within a 5-minute walk, but it's a lot more time for the person who is dealing with the travel issue to make up. Just wondering how that would be managed. I've put you on the spot there with an interesting one, but it's a real life example. So
thank you. So in terms of, if you were somebody that had to come into work, you saying, and then you had to go back to, I mean, I would be suggesting wherever possible we'd be flexible, and we'd be having people, if possible, would work from home and that type of thing, or work from closer to the appointment. We obviously want to minimise sort of service disruption, but I think it would potentially be on a case-by-case basis if it got to that point.
The wording as well in that part of the policy does say expects employees to be reasonable in making appointments, so there's some room there, I think, to try and request that they get the earliest possible appointment, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I'm happy that there's flexibility in the policy, so it is a case-by-case basis rather than having a hard and fast rule that may penalise some employees based on where they live or what services they need to access. That's fine, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions on that policy? Someone like to propose that we approve that? I will. I shall propose it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pollard. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. And we move on to item 12, which is the whistleblowing policy. And this is another one for Nikki.
So yes, whistleblowing. Again, reviewed policy. No big changes at all. Apart from we've made sure that in there, if there's any formal meeting and an employee has the right to representation, that they just let us know, or management or HR aware of who they'll be bringing to that formal meeting, just to make sure there's no conflict, and further detail as to where employees can access support. But other than that, it was just sort of title changes and very basic changes.
any questions on this policy? I'm happy it is essentially, it's just it's a standard review one that we already had existing. No questions or comments. Would anyone like to propose that we approve it? Councillor Pollard, a seconder. Councillor Roberts, thank you. All in favour? Thank you. It feels really rude rushing through a policy that you've clearly spent quite a lot of time reviewing and checking. So thank you. Thank you for your hard work on that one. It's nice to know that there isn't anything we need to scrutinise. Moving on to item 13, the work experience update. Who's presenting on this? Nikki.
Thank you. So I've got a nice one now. Yeah. So yes, work experience update. We are very proud to I've written a bit of a summary of this and some of the feedback we've had from Bishop Fox's and from Castle School. We haven't had Perlands as yet because they did theirs in their last week of school before they broke up. So yes, we're really proud that we had, I think it was 9 in total students come to us. So we had 2 consecutive weeks and then a week off and then another week, and I think every single person in our council gave something during that time. We put together timetables for all the students that came, and that might be tailored more to what they specifically wanted. Some people just came and said, you know, I just want to work at the council, so we tried our best to sort of move them around, and as we got a feel for what they liked, we might sort of tweak that timetable a little bit. I just think, yeah, it's been really great. It's been a really good experience for us. I think we would definitely like to do this again next year, and we've learned some lessons, I think, when we did it, but it's been really handy to be able to sort of, you know, go through that initial tranche of work experience students, just so we can sort of tailor it a bit more next year. I think we've built really good relationships with the schools, and we're hoping to work together in other ways. So Bishop Fox's school have said about making links with us in September when they're CV writing, and potentially us being involved in some interviews and things. So yeah, I think it's been a really successful and positive experience for all of us, and hopefully the students got some nice experience out of it. And yeah, so thank you for, I think it was Councillor O'Donnell that originally.
It was. And I have to say that, yes, because I had a work experience student that came through the same portal, because it was actually it was the Taunton and Wellington Liberal Democrats that actually set themselves up on the brochure of approved people a number of years ago, and the details are very out of date. So everything had come through, and Councillor Donnell very kindly pointed everyone at the town council, which was I think best for everybody, because it hadn't existed when it was originally set up on the portal. So it's fantastic to know that there was such a good kind of support network and a really good team of people to actually point them at. Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Again, really positive to see. I guess when we're thinking about what have we learnt, it'd be interesting just to get some views on that. And is it possible that we can write out to Monkton Wood and ask them, did they want to be involved? Because I think we've then got all the schools involved, and then that way we can kind of have a strong timetable so that we know, because I think they all do different weeks in order to help employers, isn't it? Because I think employers have shrunk as to who will take on work experience students. So to be able to offer it to that contingent of students would also be really useful. There's something there in my head, and it's not linked to work experience, but I think that if we build our relationship with education establishments, there's something there about how we teach them about politics and democracy and community and citizenship. There's something there that kind of then feeds on from that as we build relations, just to understand kind of how the world works in my head.
This is something actually that that our local MP would like to link up with Councillor Deane on, and I think the wider council, to look at their local politics education. It came out through an work experience student, and actually we've got some politics students who are in their mixture of first, second and third year politics students who are all saying, we don't know how councils work. It's not even,
I've been to speak at Richard Church.
it's not even
Yeah.
covered at degree level
No, it's not.
as to how everything practically works. I think we've probably got some really good work that we could do to link up with various different levels of a kind of local governance and actually help educate our young people, which hopefully will pass on to their parents as well. But I think a greater understanding of how councils work and how politics works and how what everyone does and who you need to ask for any of the different things you need. I think that would be really good to be involved in that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, so Councillor Baker and I actually had the privilege, and we attended some morning sessions at Perland School back along, where we went and did some of this, and it's really interesting. Frank, I'm only sat here because when I was a teenager, my local MP came and spoke in a school assembly, and that's what sparked the interest. So it absolutely works, whether people are happy I'm sat here or not. I am.
That's the phone.
Yes, and one of the Bishop Fox's students spotted me as I was working there. Said, "Oh, I saw you on the poster." I was like, "Ah, yes." But yeah, he was really pleased to do the work experience with the council, and he said he wanted to come back to do summer work. So it's had a really good impression on him.
Really good.
Thanks to everyone who put the stuff together for those weeks. Bryony.
I was just going to throw a bit of credit really to Nikki and Zara, because quite a few work experience placements, it does feel like the young person turns up and makes the tea all day, and Zara and Nikki really put a lot of effort into, I mean, when you say scheduling, every minute was accounted for and there was benefit to everything, and they got to see absolutely everything that we do, and it was a really, you didn't need to put in that level of effort, so you showed us off in the best possible light.
Councillor Smith-Roberts.
I'm wondering whether we can use that, maybe your schedule, for some of our councillors to spend a bit of time understanding the different roles within the organisation. Only because I know I've offered to go out with like the open spaces team and stuff, but I'm wondering if that schedule would work for like a day or something, so that we can go and, clean a toilet or
Suggesting councillor work experience.
councillor work experience. I think to understand just that, I spoke about that procurement job that we've got advertised as an example. I know that because I've spent 12 years working in local government as a councillor, but there may be some of our newer councillors that haven't, and then gives them a kind of wide array of all the different roles that kind of make the cogs turn in local government.
Yeah.
Something to think about and add to the councillor training portfolio.
We did have them with Will doing pretend grant applications, and he was going through and saying no or yes, whether they were to get whether they should get the grant. So it was really good, wasn't it? There's lots of nice activities and things. We had our apprentices talk to them, and yeah, it was fab. Councillor Smith, what she said about some of the sort of lessons learned. One thing that we have taken away from it is that we're going to ask for people to apply to us, because I think it just makes us aware of what they want to achieve. And a couple of the students sort of turned up, and it was sort of us trying to get out of them what they wanted, and having to sort of tweak the week for them. But I think we know if people make the effort to apply, and they can, they definitely want to come here, but also we can really tailor it to what they need then.
Obviously, they generally apply through a portal or just send an email. So you're going to put together your own application form that they then fill out, so you get a better idea of who they are and what they want. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a really good idea. I think you're going to have a queue next year. I think word's going to get around, but this was a good work experience to go on. So I'm going to propose. Oh, sorry, Councillor Pollard. I'm going to miss you there.
With it was free a week that you had. Is that the sort of if when it happens next year, would the free a week be the sort of figure of people you'd be looking at next year, or would you want to increase it?
We had a bit of a mix. Thank you. We had a bit of a mix. So it wasn't 3, 3, 3. It was 5 from Bishop Fox's, and then 2 the sort of first and third week. I think, to be honest, it depends on what their interests are, because we did take 2 in open spaces. And that was more tricky, I think, in terms of transporting them and finding them tasks to do. And maintenance took 1 and said, look, we can't take anyone. And I think that was a sensible decision. Whereas in the office, potentially, I know comms had 2 for one of the weeks, and actually that worked really well because they could do the interviews, they could work together on building presentations and things. So I don't necessarily think we'd have a hard and fast rule for it. It would just really depend on where they wanted to work and whether we could accommodate it really.
I can come in on that. I'm wondering if they were to do an application, I'm wondering how you can have councillors support you. I know that they did an interview with the mayor, but I'm wondering if there's something where we could help and give some time back to help kind of work with them if they've got a particular interest. I don't know if they want to do chairing skills or something, or not even that, but just something where they want to go out and learn a bit more about that and just saying, speak to us, because I would be up for passing on knowledge or kind of helping them with a task or something.
Did have Councillor O'Donnell took them for a little while. I think he had a county council meeting that he was attending and had thought that these 2 young people might really enjoy a 3-hour long meeting. I was quite surprised when they just didn't seem that interested. But yeah, I think it would be good if we could offer that, because I think young people would have a lot of questions around what and why and
Or even just doing, I know we did it for the staff Q&A of councillors, whether having young people do it. I know we have aspirations to do more around youth and youth parliaments and stuff. Actually doing even that, I don't know, just use us councillors to help you as well.
it's recorded.
It's been recorded.
Any more comments on that? In that case, I'm going to propose that we note that report with huge thanks and appreciation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pollard, all those in favour? Well done. We had my 1 work experience student. It almost as much as I was prepared. So item 14, the White Ribbon Initiative. And that's back to Nikki again.
Yeah, last one from me. So the White Ribbon Initiative. So this was something that the Town Clerk Chief Executive requested that we look into after she received an email from the NOUT, which was encouraging us as councils to sign up to this initiative. Hopefully you've been able to sort of have a look at the report and maybe even have a look at the other document also. But in a nutshell, the White Ribbon's mission is to prevent violence against women and girls by addressing the root cause. So it's about engaging males as allies in the fight against violence. So what we would like to do is we would really like to become a White Ribbon supporter initially, and that's looking at organisations with less than 250 employees. As you can probably see from the report, you don't need to do a lot to sign up and become a White Ribbon supporter. But I think it's obviously a very, very worthy cause, and it's something that's linked into a few things that we're looking at the moment. So obviously the Worker Protection Act 2023. So we've got a legal duty as an employer to take proactive steps to prevent harassment, and having becoming a White Ribbon supporter will give us extra resources and tools to implement the White Ribbon values. In addition to this, and we'll probably be talking to you about this at the next personnel committee, we've also accessed some funding from the Safer Streets Home Office funding stream, and we're going to be doing some work hopefully with local schools to spend some of that money. Yes, basically what we would like is the committee to approve us signing up to the White Ribbon Initiative.
I fully support this. I've supported women who have been the victim of violence against them by men. So I think anything that we can do to help advocate and educate. I think my questions with my councillor hat on would be, there's no cost involved in this. I wouldn't mind if there was a cost, but we regularly get asked about what the City of Sanctuary cost us as an example. If there is a cost, I would support it anyhow. So if I've missed it, okay, 175 plus VAT. So again, very minimal, because I know we'll put a social media post out on this positively, looking to say how we want to make a difference. And that'll be one of the first questions that are asked. This for me is a good thing. I guess for me, then it's around that comms plan leading up to the 25th of November, was it, off the top of my head, as to how we support that. Is there a council at the time where we can discuss it, or have someone come in and talk to us about it? Is it just a social media post? Will we have white ribbons that we can wear around that time? Just kind of those kind of operational questions once hopefully we all vote to support this.
Yes, so there's lots and lots of information on the NALC site. Actually, we was looking at a video prior to this point about how councillors and officers can get involved and what we need to do. As if you become a white ribbon supporter, then you do get sort of reduced costs on there, reduced prices on their shop, so we can purchase some white ribbons. And it is about doing things like making sure that, you know, we are wearing the white ribbons, and that we raise awareness, and that we have a campaign around that day. So yes, I mean, if we sign up to this, then it would be not only an internal comms piece and project, but also we'd be linking up with external comms to put together a bit of a project plan.
I just was going to come in there. I'm just wondering about timing, so I'm just having to double check myself. So the grant money that we've got for the Women's Safety Charter, which Nikki was talking to, is actually going to be for an internal comms piece of work for schools once they go back in September. So if we could get the timing right, there's potentially a comms angle there around, there's an expenditure here for the white ribbon, but actually we've secured, I think it's just under 2,000, isn't it, for the grant proposal from the police to do that. So there might be a way of sort of putting the comms together, because it's all around women's safety and violence against women and girls. That might be.
Nikki.
I've actually linked up with the schools that we did work experience with. Use my new contacts, because that's what we're hoping to do, link up with the schools to provide this the comms piece. So yeah, hopefully when they come back in September, they'll answer my email.
Is it possible in future, applying for any future grants, that actually it might be beneficial to be a white ribbon supporter if we were applying for grants in future for that kind of project, if we actually have signed up to show that we are committed to this as a cause? I'm just thinking that it might, you know, if we are applying for more money, then it might add weight to any applications in future.
What it's made me think about is, I know that the police are running that two things. The police are running that campaign where you can go out with, as females, with officers in your local area and tell them about where you don't, I think it is the Safer Streets campaign, isn't it, where you don't feel safe, because I went out with them at one point. I'm also wondering then, can it lead to, you know, even further money about then doing changes to our parks, as an example, where, you know, I know in Hamilton Park we don't have lighting down one side, so it means that you have to go either divert yourself another route or run really quickly down that bit. So it's just, yeah, thinking ahead, how do we use this to then link into other things that we want to do?
So is there some survey work that we could actually carry out, some public consultation to say, how can we help in a really practical way as a council to some of the infrastructure stuff we've got?
In terms of what you were saying there about the would it make us more eligible for other grant funding? We are, unrelated to this, currently working on our corporate social responsibility policy, but I think this would support generally with that.
Councillor Deane.
Yeah, I think you just play. That's on the similar channel to fed around how we could use the people who are out visible as well more often. So, you know, particularly our operations and assets team, our assets that are out there in our park. So it's not just digital, but actually we've got physical spaces and how we use them for some, but not just like this, but also other things during the year. So the poppy appear, or there's other key moments and key events that happen. This should be one in a calendar, I think, of things that we're going to talk about and create some noise around. Just think about how we do that with all the different things at our disposal. To create that visibility, I think that would be really powerful. But yeah, we should absolutely do this.
Have any more comments or questions? Someone who would like to propose? Councillor Pollard. Yeah, first. Is that seconded by Councillor Smith-Roberts that we approve the town council signing up to the White Women Initiative? All those in favour? Thank you very much, Councillor Deacon. You worried your hand wasn't going to be up. That is unanimous that we go ahead with that project. So thank you very much. And we move on to item 15, which is an access to information and motion to exclude the press and public. Do I need to read out the whole thing? I must create a recording of this.
Only the bottom bit of the recommendation.
What's that?
Just the recommendation.
So recommendation that under section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the items of business agenda item 15 on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 respectively of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act, namely information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. So I propose that we do exclude the press and public at this stage. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Smith-Roberts, all in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. So at that point, we will cease the YouTube recording.